In 1825, a century-old family of imperial architects was facing the danger of a break in its heritage. Lei Jingxiu, the fourth generation of the legendary Yangshi Lei family, knew his days were numbered. He had a tough choice to make. It came during the reign of Emperor Dao Guang. The golden age of the Qing dynasty had passed. This once mighty and prosperous dynasty was not only in decline from internal problems, but also suffering from the intrusion of Western capitalism. Lei Jingxiu's third son, Jingxiu, was intelligent and quick-witted and always receiving special attention from his father. By now, the family was affluent enough to ensure a carefree and happy childhood for its young members. The family had always valued the education of the next generation, especially cultivation of the craftsmanship handed down from earlier generations. Sadly, Lei Jingxiu's eldest son died prematurely of illness. There are also no records that his second son ever worked in the Yangshi office, the department overseeing the design and construction of imperial buildings.
雷锦修在16岁的时候就已经进入了这个样式坊去学习，而且在这个过程中也是非常的勤奋和努力。
Jingxiu appeared to live up to his father's expectations. He was hard-working, inquisitive, and constantly reflecting on skills and designs that others took for granted. Despite his affluent background, he did not become lazy. He became the Lei family's sole hope for continuing its tradition. However, Lei Jingxiu, who knew his son better than anyone, had his concerns. After all, his son was only 22 years old and had limited experience. Moreover, the title of chief architect of the Yangshi office was not hereditary. It had to be earned. A decision had to be made whether to groom Jingxiu for the position or to appoint Guoju, a more experienced colleague. The reputation of the entire Lei family was at stake. There was no room for error. At the time, the Yangshi office was undertaking an extremely important project, construction of the Baohuayu Mausoleum for Emperor Dao Guang at the eastern Qing tombs. The project was at a critical stage, with the work of the office heavy and complex. Fully aware of the significance of the task and fearing it could be mishandled, Lei Jingxiu, on his deathbed, appointed his longtime partner Guoju as chief architect of the Yangshi office, a decision that came as a surprise to other members of the Lei family. Yet Lei Jingxiu, who had been working in the office for 6 years, deeply understood his father's intentions.
对于皇家陵寝来讲，它是非常重大的，所以他会选择说，我更放心的把这样一个重任交给了郭九去承担，而不是他自己的这个儿子。
In 1828, 3 years after Lei Jingxiu's death, the newly completed Baohuayu Mausoleum suffered a severe water leak. As a result, the emperor delivered harsh punishments to several workers involved in its construction. Some suggested that Lei Jiaxi's deathbed decision to overlook Jingxiu was the final act of a father determined to protect his child. Wealth and comfort have always been a double-edged sword. When a nation's wealth is not properly distributed and used, it can become a curse. During the reign of Emperor Dao Guang, the Qing dynasty began to decline significantly, with the budget for daily consumption gradually tightened. The emperor took the lead in advocating and practicing frugality, wearing worn-out clothes that had been patched. Apart from the Empress Dowager, the Emperor and the Empress, no one was allowed to eat meat except on festive occasions. The concubines were forbidden from using cosmetics or wearing brocaded clothes in daily life. Nevertheless, Emperor Dao Guang could not hide his fondness for the luxurious Yuanming Yuan, also called the Old Summer Palace. After much consideration, he decided to invest a significant amount of money in rebuilding a splendid palace there for himself, Shenda Hall.
慎德堂应该是从道光11年之后啊，我可以这么去讲，它甚至变成了一个持续很久，从道光到咸丰啊，就是2代皇帝非常喜欢，而且是不遗余力的去进行调整建设的这样一个单栋建筑。
According to historical records, starting in 1725, the third year of his reign, Emperor Yongzheng resided at Old Summer Palace for an average of 206.8 days a year. In 1740, the fifth year of Qianlong's reign, the emperor lived there for 251 days. Apart from 1799 and 1800, the fourth and fifth years of Emperor Jia Qing's reign, he stayed in the garden for on average 162 days a year. Emperor Dao Guang averaged 260 days a year, with the number reaching 355 days in 1849, the 29th year of his reign. Emperor Xian Feng averaged 216.6 days. Old Summer Palace was treasured by consecutive Qing emperors, with its charming park constantly being designed and expanded. It not only featured scenic spots inspired by the Jiangnan region, but also creatively incorporated Western garden architecture. Thanks to generations of skilled Chinese artisans, this royal garden, construction of which spanned the reigns of emperors Changxi, Yongzheng, Qianlong and Jia Qing, became an unrivaled work of art, a true testimony to the peak of the Qing Empire. The Lei family emerged at an opportune time and distinguished itself. Its members poured their heart and soul into their work, demonstrating the outstanding craftsmanship that was a hallmark of Chinese artisans for millennia. Lei Jingxiu surely remembered the first time he followed his father into Old Summer Palace, a place of sheer beauty unlike anything he had ever seen. The impressive park inspired in him a deep reverence for his father and forefathers. This drawing of the 9 continents in peace scenic spot in the Old Summer Palace, housed in the National Library of China, was created during Emperor Dao Guang's renovation of the park. Characterized by its clear imagery and distinct lines, the plan was drawn by none other than Lei Jingxiu.
实际上，从就是现存的这个样式雷图档来看，就雷锦修的这个职业技能还是非常强的，包括它这个颜色的渲染，然后整个图面呈现的这个细节，然后以及这个整洁度，然后线条等等。
Over time, Lei Jingxiu acquired solid basic skills through practical experience. He eagerly anticipated the day when he would create even more majestic and timeless buildings for this park as its chief architect. Little did he know then that what awaited him was an endless downward spiral. Despite its past glory, the Lei family soon found itself in hot water. In 1826, a year after the death of his father, Lei Jingxiu saw the birth of his first child, Siqi. Despite his hard work in the Yangshi office, rising inflation and soaring prices in the post-Daoguang era strained his finances. His modest salary was barely enough to support his family. When Siqi turned 15 years old, even harder times arrived. The Lei brothers divided up the family property, and Lei Jingxiu had to establish his own household with his wife and 6 children. By now, it was increasingly evident that the Qing dynasty was in decline. The Yangshi office saw a drastic decrease in projects, exacerbating the financial situation of Jingxiu's family, who ended up pawning their clothes to make ends meet. Those were the darkest days.
他们家整个的经济状态呢，实际上也是跟整个清朝的这个国运是联系在一起的。也就是说，他们家在能够接到这种皇家工程的时候，他们的收入就会多一些；可能接不到的时候，相对的这个经济状况就会差一点。
In 1840, amid deafening cannon fire off China's south coast, 2 empires, Qing and Britain, clashed for the first time, ushering in the conflict between the East and the West that came to be known as the Opium War. The war ended with the humiliating defeat of the Qing Empire, which was forced to cede territories, pay indemnities, and sign the Treaty of Nanjing, marking the beginning of drastic changes in China. Rumors about the defeat ran rife in Beijing. However, with the war looming only in the distant south and the Qing having a solid foundation, life seemed to continue as normal in the capital. Despite the apparent normalcy, Lei Jingxiu had no opportunities to display his skills. In 1841, perhaps driven by thoughts of his ancestors or a premonition of what was to come, Lei Jingxiu, now 38, decided to organize his family's pedigree. Over the next 2 decades, he would copy down it intermittently. Although frustrated, he was filled with only tender feelings and respect for his ancestors. As he carefully transcribed the family's glorious past, he was overwhelmed with emotion. Lei Jingxiu was unaware his act of desperation would decades later be discovered by a scholar named Zhu Qiqian, who would go on to reveal the existence of Yangshi Lei as an architectural dynasty.
实际上，他在接触雷氏后人的时候，就已经有打听过相关的这个家族的一些情况，但我觉得应该是有了家谱之后，就更加清晰和明确了整个样式类家族传承的一个关系。
In his adolescence, Lei Jingxiu was no stranger to hardship, similar to his father's experience. He too began to apprentice in the Yangshi office at 16. Every day, he would wake up early to clean the house and buy breakfast for his parents before rushing to work. Just like his father in his youth, Siqi was humble, diligent, and studious. This tough period provided trials and tribulations that facilitated his growth.
因为他的这个成长经历，让他比较早的就进入了需要养家的这样一个状态。实际上，他的这个知识面也是相对广的。他的这一段的这个经历，对于他日后从事这个样式房的这样一个建筑设计类的工作，其实起了很大的一个作用。
As the eldest son, Siqi understood the need to share his father's burden in supporting the family. Starting in 1846, at the age of 20, he worked as an assistant in a private timber mill that contracted imperial construction projects, earning a modest salary. In his spare time, he delved into the field of construction. Lei Jingxiu even compiled his study notes from this period into a volume named A Great Dream. The opening lines read, "Only after learning about myriad nuances does one realize how difficult it is to learn a craft." The question remained, however, whether he and his father would get to put their skills to good use. A break finally came in 1849 when Emperor Dao Guang ordered the construction of the Shuang Fengshu concubine tomb for the burial of 16 concubines. After the death of Empress Xiao Jingcheng, she too was buried here, and the tomb was renamed Mudong. Although Mudong was built to the lowest specifications among all Qing empress tombs, it was the first imperial project undertaken by the Yangshi office under the leadership of Lei Jingxiu. Goju was too old and no longer able to manage the affairs of the Yangshi office effectively. Although he still nominally held the position of chief architect, the actual work had been handed over to Lei Jingxiu, who finally had a chance to demonstrate his talent. A year later, Emperor Dao Guang, who had ruled for 30 years, passed away in his beloved Shende Hall in Old Summer Palace. Emperor Xianfeng ascended to the throne. That year also saw the death of Empress Xiao Herui, the queen of Emperor Jia Qing. The empress did not have a mausoleum built in her lifetime, so following her passing and that of Emperor Dao Guang, it fell to her grandson, Emperor Xianfeng, to oversee construction of her tomb. It was decided the mausoleum would be built on the western side of Changling Mausoleum, where Emperor Jia Qing was buried, hence the name Changxi, the horizon. After Lei Jingxiu's promotion to chief architect, his son Siqi resigned from the timber mill to work on the Changxi tomb project. The architectural style of Changxi is rather simple, with only 20 buildings covering 17,000 square meters. What makes it unique are its amazing echo stone and echo wall. The seventh stone slab from the dome is the echo stone. When standing on it, the ground amplifies any sound an individual makes by tens of times, akin to an echo in a hollow valley. The circular wall surrounding the dome is the echo wall. If a person whispers on the east side, another person with their ear to the wall on the west side can still hear the sound clearly despite being 74 meters away. To this day, only 2 echo walls have been discovered in ancient Chinese architecture, one at the Temple of Heaven in Beijing and the other at Changxi Tomb. This gives the latter a unique charm among the 7 empress tombs of the Qing dynasty. Lei Jingxiu's signature can be found on more than 10 documents in the archives about Old Summer Palace, housed at the National Library of China. Having completed the construction of Changxi Tomb, Lei Jingxiu and his son went back to work at Yangshi office in this imperial garden. In 1855, the 5th year of his reign, Emperor Xianfeng decided to renovate Old Summer Palace. These archives are from that period.
其实咸丰刚继位的时候，也是一个勤政的皇帝，其实他试图想说重新去振兴清朝的一个命运。那所以在咸丰5年之前，其实并没有什么这个工程建设，直到这个咸丰5年的时候，咸丰皇帝重新信圆明园，就是他又想着还是要到圆明园去居住，然后才使得就是雷锦修有了更多的这个工程的一个机会。
Finally, in his 50s, Lei Jingxiu was appointed as chief architect at Old Summer Palace. From 1855 to 1859, together with an enormous number of artisans, he helped renovate 9 continents in peace, decorating imperial buildings including the Shende, Jifu, and Tongdao halls. During this period, the Lei family was bustling with activity and life gradually improved. By now, the Lei family had been living in Beijing for more than 150 years. As imperial architects, they had passed down their craft for 5 generations. Lei Siqi was now 30. His years of education and experience made his father feel confident to trust him with major projects. As time passed, Lei Jingxiu often became emotional when thinking about old age. He believed that his persistence must be meaningful, and that each generation had its own opportunities and missions. In 1858, the site selection and design of Emperor Xianfeng's tomb began. Lei Siqi, who had undergone strict training from a young age, was presented a precious opportunity at the age of 33.
他独立执掌的第一个就是咸丰皇帝的定陵， 那个时候，实际上雷锦修已经年纪比较大了，雷思齐开始真正的独当一面，然后独立来负责这个陵寝的选址的相关工作。
The traditional feng shui theory was fully utilized in the site selection, planning and design of Qing imperial tombs in order to ensure an image of nobility, greatness, and immortality. In terms of architectural details, the aim was to achieve exquisite and meticulous designs that reflected the idea of supreme power. Emperor Xianfeng personally appointed officials who were experts in feng shui to find an auspicious site for his resting place. Lei Jingxiu was called upon to make the final assessment.
他也需要从建筑师的这样一个专业视角去衡量，就是风水师选择的这个地形，比如说它是不是能够容纳下就清代的这个陵寝礼制规定的各种各样的这个建筑，是不是能够符合就是陵寝建筑的一些要求，所以在这方面它是有话语权的。
At first, the Feng Shui masters suggested Changxi Valley in the southwest of the eastern Qing tombs as an option, citing its distinct signs of majesty and embracing terrain. However, Lei Jingxiu objected.
风水师会认为程子峪是一块风水上佳的一块地方，但是雷思齐经过这个现场的一个初步的一个测算，就认为这个地势过于的局限，所以也是从他的这个专业意见考虑，然后还是否定掉了程子峪的这样一个选址，然后选择了就是平安峪来作为咸丰皇帝的陵寝所在地。
This is the Dingling section in the eastern Qing tombs, the mausoleum of Emperor Xianfeng in Ping'an Valley. To preserve the cultural heritage, Dingling has not been open to the public. Xianfeng was the last emperor in Chinese history who held real power, and the interior structure of his tomb has inspired much speculation. Li Pengbo is a doctoral candidate at Tianjin University. Recently, he and two fellow scholars have been studying the internal structure of the Dingling underground palace. As the only 3D model of the palace known to exist is kept in Germany, the precious designs passed down from the Lei family, especially the 6 design sketches stored in the National Library of China, have become the most important reference in their research. These drawings are rough sketches done by Lei Jingxiu for the creation of a 3D model of the Dingling underground palace. Starting in September 1858, over the course a month or so, Lei Jingxiu and his fellow artisans in the Yangshi office presented over 10 design proposals to Emperor Xianfeng. The hurried handwriting on the drawing seems to suggest the work was done in a rush. Relying on the accurate markings on the drawings, the research team from Tianjin University crafted 35 key components for creating a replica using crude materials and techniques. As the inner structure of this imperial tomb was gradually deciphered, everyone was amazed at the exquisite craftsmanship of ancient Chinese artisans. In the spring of 1859, with the plans finalized, construction of Emperor Xianfeng's tomb began in earnest. However, the work was halted just a year later when the empire was dealt another heavy blow. In the fall of 1860, the Allied forces of Britain and France advanced on Beijing, the Qing capital. Emperor Xianfeng, who was in Old Summer Palace, fled to the Chengde mountain resort under the pretext of going hunting at Mulan, a hunting ground near Chengde. Lei Jingxiu was concerned, but failed to realize the gravity of the situation. He soon learned that Old Summer Palace was in big trouble. On October 6, 1860, the British and French Allied forces bypassed the city of Beijing and headed straight for Old Summer Palace, which they proceeded to loot. A devastating fire then engulfed on October 18th. Each scenic spot in the imperial park was imbued with special meaning. Some served as reminders for the emperor to be diligent in state affairs. Others conveyed hope for peace and tranquility throughout the land. But at this moment, these meanings and the grand ambitions of Qing emperors were reduced to ashes. This fire shook the Chinese people to the core and dealt a crushing blow to Lei Jingxiu. His eldest daughter, Lady Yan Lei, was married at 17 to the second son of Yan Gui, a military officer stationed in Changchun Garden. Yan Gui's position was that of a low-level official in the imperial capital's security system. They lived a peaceful life in Haidian town. Haidian was not spared when the British and French forces occupied Old Summer Palace. On October 8th, a group of French soldiers looted the town. Yan Gui and his son, who were on patrol, bravely confronted the enemy. Yet they were outnumbered and died attempting to defend their country. Haidian, an important town west to Beijing, was plunged into chaos that day. Yan Gui's wife gathered the whole family of 14 people, young and old, refusing to surrender and preparing to die with honor. The family set their own house on fire. Among those who died that day was Lady Yan Lei. The fire in Old Summer Palace burned for 3 whole days. Besides it, other imperial gardens in the suburbs of Beijing, including Qingyi Garden, Jingming Garden, Jingyi Garden, and Changchun Garden, were also burnt to the ground. The nation was ravaged and homes were destroyed. As fire lit up the sky, Lei Jingxiu could see nothing but darkness. October 18, 2022, marked the 162nd anniversary of the Old Summer Palace tragedy.
能烧的都烧了，就只剩下了这些个石头。别以为他们只会沉默着不语。
Citizens of Beijing joined commemorative activities in Old Summer Palace.
却依然的屹立着。
Looking at these ruins, people today might find it difficult to grasp the splendor of Old Summer Palace in its prime. However, it was a decision made by Lei Jingxiu over a century ago, when the night sky was ablaze, that allows us today to comprehend what this park once looked like. In a moment of crisis, Jingxiu suddenly remembered the drawings stored at the Yangshi office. Enlisting his son and fellow workers at the office, he took a great risk to move the drawings and models to his home for safekeeping. When Jingxiu surveyed the surviving drawings, he was overwhelmed with emotion. As Old Summer Palace went up in flames, the ashes in the air fell onto the drawings and 3D models. Salvaging them proved invaluable for future generations. From then on, the work of the Yangshi office was brought to a complete halt. Lei Jingxiu did not participate in another construction project at Old Summer Palace. Dongquan Yinghutong, in Beijing's Xicheng district, was originally known as East Guanyin Temple Hutong. Lei Jingxiu moved his family here from Haidian town after the atrocity at Old Summer Palace. He specially assigned 3 rooms for organizing and storing the drawings rescued from the Yangshi office. This was the first time the Lei family became culturally aware. Jingxiu, no longer participating in any engineering affairs, began to devote himself to collecting and organizing all the historical documents and drawings he could find. He firmly believed that these materials were valuable as well as useful to the descendants of the Lei family. At the very least, they would be a keepsake.
因为皇家也没有专门存图的机构了，弄到内务府，内务府没地方堆，所以下一个工程接着要查实就很困难。从那以后，实际上就达成一个默契，内务府的总管大臣很明确的讲，你们把图拿回去存着，将来有用，从你这儿调。
It likely never occurred to Lei Jingxiu that years later these drawings would lay the foundation for the reconstruction of Old Summer Palace, ordered by Emperor Tongzhi and the Empress Dowager Cixi. Over 7 decades later, the first architects of the People's Republic of China, including Zhu Qiqian and Liu Dunzhen, used these drawings as important clues in exploring the design methods and construction systems behind Qing imperial architecture. Even after more than 100 years, these drawings remain a significant reference for analyzing and restoring Qing imperial gardens, palaces, and mausoleums.
正是通过就是我们看到的这些样式房的图纸，还有跟它相关的这种档案啊，编制起来，为我们还原出来了一个中国建筑是怎么从图纸、从想法变成现实，然后怎么在进行这样一个营建运转的一个真实的一个历程，而不是我们可能用外来的西方的这种语汇或者体系去来解读我们今天的建筑。回到它本身，它到底是怎么想的，它怎么做的，怎么形成的这样一个中国的建筑的一个体系啊，这个太重要了。
Following Emperor Xianfeng's hasty escape, the once glamorous Chengde mountain resort turned overnight into a bleak sanctuary for the Qing dynasty. On August 22, 1861, a terrified Emperor Xianfeng died in the resort's Yanbo Jishuang Palace, and the throne was passed to 6-year-old Tong Zhi, his eldest son born to concubine Qixi. Soon after, the empresses Dowager Qixi and Qi'an, in alliance with Prince Keng Yexin, launched the Xinyu coup and began to rule from behind the scenes. In 1866, 6 years after the fire at Old Summer Palace, Lei Jingxiu's life was nearing an end. Without doubt, he was deeply influenced by traditional Chinese culture. Diligent and hard-working in his official duties and strict in educating his children at home, he had established his authority as a father, actively involved in family affairs, and maintained good relationships with neighbors and friends. Lei Jingxiu had received a good education and possessed exceptional talent. But during the best years of his life, he was kept in an inferior position, forced to witness the decline of the Lei family from its peak. After struggling for 27 years, he finally got his opportunity at the age of 49. Just when things seemed to be looking up, he witnessed first the fall of China in 1860, then the Yangshi office, the control of which he had worked hard to regain, ceased to exist. Throughout his life, Jingxiu found no real opportunity to showcase his talent, although he had always hoped to build lasting architecture with exquisite craftsmanship like his father and ancestors. In a tumultuous era, ideals and ambitions of individuals often seem insignificant. At the beginning of 1866, French missionary Armand David managed to transport a group of exotic animals he discovered in China back to Europe. The animal was the Milu deer, a rare species exclusive to China. That same year, Zuo Zongtang, viceroy of Fujian and Zhejiang, founded the Fuqiao Arsenal and the Ma-Wei Shipping Bureau. The Qing government had been defeated and humiliated, yet it was determined to learn advanced technologies from Western barbarians in order to fight against them, giving rise to the Westernization movement. The call for reform was heard across the Qing Empire. This attempt was historically known Tongzhi Restoration. After the death of Lei Jingxiu, his son Siqi, having shown outstanding ability, became chief architect of the Yangshi office. Before he passed away, Lei Jingxiu passed on the precious family pedigree to Siqi. By now, the Lei family had continued their legacy as imperial architects for the Qing Empire for 5 generations. Siqi, the 6th generation, held the legacy dear. It was due to the Empress Dowager Cixi's obsession that the construction of the Qing Empire's imperial gardens reached its final climax. The Lei family were also about to reach its peak amid the decline of the empire. No matter how it would turn out, such a story was not to be forgotten.